Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Paul Zohav with me here today. Paul brings a wealth of experience to marriage and communication. With over 30 years of professional experience as a chaplain and domestic violence counselor, he devotes himself to supporting couples and families through marriage and communication coaching in Tucson, Arizona. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to our podcast together.
Yeah, so you have a lot of experience in a variety of different things. I didn't get into them all in the brief intro. Let's talk a little bit right now about what your marriage and communication counseling, your main focus is right now.
Well, over the past 10, 15 years, I've helped about 5,000 people.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a big impact.
Basically, they come to me when their marriage is struggling. They may have moved apart. They may have looking at the possibility of divorce. They don't want a divorce. They don't see any other options, and I provide them with a whole lot of options. In this half hour, people will get at least 5 major tips on how to expand their communication and relationship skills. Because, good intimacy and love got you. Good communication skills will get you to your 5th wedding anniversary. That's my tagline.
Okay. So do you want to dive right into those 5 points or tips?
I'll start with, I started out 30 years ago as a domestic violence counselor.
Okay.
And after about a year or two, I realized I'd rather prevent it than treat it.
Sure.
And so I've been looking over the past 30 years for what, if present, would make the difference in the quality of people's families, marriages, parenting children anywhere. And I've gotten things down to a recipe. My new book, Marriage and Communication Recipes for Life, is exactly formatted as if it was a cookbook, only the cake is your life.
Okay.
And it begins with going from reacting to responding. Most people react. I say something to you, you tend to react. You say something to me, I in the past would tend to react. But reacting is not terribly intelligent. It's a reaction. Mm-hmm. And it certainly works when your light turns red. When the light turns red, I want you to stop. I don't want you to think about it. I want you to stop. However, in human relationship, we are obliged to pause, reflect, and choose our words carefully. And that starts with starting your sentences with yes and. There are 5 gifts when you start your sentences with yes and. Number 1, you've gone from reacting to responding. Intelligence engaged. Check. 2, you've established a connection. Yes. 3, they know that you've heard them, which is really important. So
yes.
So knowing that you've heard them, and that you have a relationship, and you're now not responding rather than reacting, your and allows you to choose your next words. You don't have to be in the rabbit hole. Long as it takes to say yes. You never surrender your reality, your personal life, your next moment to anybody, so long as you have yes. The 5th gift is that when people are irritated and annoyed at you or in your direction, you could defend yourself or explain, but it's rather useless because they're not listening.
Right.
So start with a yes. And they say, you're a terrible person. Yes, let's talk about that. I don't know why you said that to me. Yes, let's sit down and discuss this.
Right.
With the yes, you are completely in control of your life, 100% for the rest of your life. Because if you let someone hijack your relationship, your reality, you don't know what ditch you're going to be winding up in. Yes. Yes, and a sentence that begins with yes is far stronger than the same sentence without it. I mean, you could say, let's talk about finances. Or you could say, yes, let's take a time and we'll talk about finances. It's a very different invitation when you have a yes in the beginning of it. I'm
Sure.
not happy here. You could, say, yes, and I'm not really content with what's going on. Yes, and it's a can opener to communication. It opens up lines of communication reliably, whether you're a manager at work or spouse at home, or you're talking to your teenager. Teenagers, not only teenagers, will say, I really want this impossibly expensive item. And you could react to them, or you could say, yes, I'm listening, just like that. And
Right.
when you respond to your teenager or your child with a, yes, I'm listening, tell me more, you will actually get the information you need to be an appropriate parent. If you react to them, you don't get the information you need to offer them honor, respect, and leaving them feeling listened to. Anybody, perhaps your spouse wants to raise a subject that's very important to them. It's urgent that we talk about this, but you haven't really thought much about this. So you could force an outcome, not really worthwhile, or you could say, yes, I'm not sure I have what to say right now. Give me about an hour or two and we can start this conversation. I'll be able to participate.
Right. This
Yes.
reminds me a little bit. This is a great tool to implement the rule of seek first to understand.
Yeah. Well, reacting is not intelligent. Responding gives you a shot at it. Yes.
Right.
The other companion skill, this is the second recipe of the 16 recipes in the book, is to be aware that we speak declaratively. I'm speaking declaratively now. What I'm saying inevitably sounds like it's the truth to you, Tim. And once we realize that, when I say something to you, your mind goes good, bad, right, wrong, agree, or disagree. And I say to you, it doesn't match what you intend, plan, remember, recall, we will stop listening and we will stop communicating and we will start arguing about whose truth is truer, whose reality is most real, who's right, who's wrong.
Sure.
No communication when that happens. And for that, we need our next best friend is seems.
Okay.
To me, we haven't talked about this. Or yes, and it seems to me we bring up the past frequently. Yes, and it seems to me that when we talk about this, we tend to fall into an argument. A seems helps us bypass the truth app. It allows us to discuss. So a seems will get you, yes, and let's talk about that, where a truth will get you an argument.
Right. This
Yes.
seems like another tool for the what is it saying? There are two truths, right? 2 points of view on a particular topic, right? To acknowledge both sides of the issue.
Well, seems opens up a line for discussion. Yes, and opens up a line of communication, establishes a relationship, allows you to have a conversation. With the seems, we don't have to waste time arguing about irrelevancies or opinions or thoughts. It's if you really want to, when communication is at stake, seems to me we might want to talk about that. Let's pick a time. Even if someone comes up with the most aversive point of view, and they're angrily in support of that aversive point of view, you can offer them a gift of communication. Say, well, yes, I've never really heard it put quite that way before. How about this? Let's make a date and we'll have a cup of coffee and I'll hear everything you have to say. Or perhaps you're in a staff meeting and you didn't understand one of the points of the presenter. So you could say, yes, I'm not sure I understood the first thing you said. Could you say that again? If you're leading the agenda, you're the leader of this group, and someone comes with a brilliant idea that's off topic, you say, yes, hang on a second. I like the way you think. I really enjoy that thought. How about this? We'll put it at the end of the agenda and we'll get to it. If we don't get to it in this meeting, I'll sit down with you personally and hear everything you have to say. So this is the universal of yes. Yes.
Right. Those are all great. Thank you, Paul. Before we expand a little bit more into that, I wanted to ask you a question about something I noticed was in a lot of your examples you just gave, you said, we'll circle back to that at another time, at another date. Well, yes, that point of view or thought is interesting and I appreciate it, but let's circle back to it later. Is there a delay? Is there a power in delaying? Does it change people, allow people time to change their emotional state or something so they can talk about it in a different way?
Well, one bottom line is if you're not 100% present, you ought not be talking. Hungry, upset, irritated, annoyed, tired, a phone call that's about to come in. So if you're not 100% present in the moment, well, then let's say you're 90% present, which is really quite generous, my experience.
Okay.
At 10%, you won't hear something, you'll mishear something, you'll misunderstand something. And from that moment on, anything you say is pretty much garbage. So the first litmus test is, am I 100% present?
Okay.
And so someone comes up with this brilliant idea, and you have agenda to pursue, or someplace you have to go. So you say, yes, we get to talk about this. How about this? How about give me about an hour? I'll call you and we'll do this. That's one approach. Two, a little bit later in our conversation, we'll talk about love languages and personality types.
Okay.
And the Myers-Briggs personality type, which many of us have heard about it, there are people who are highly planful. They are not happy unless they know when. I'm married to one of those people. And if I say I'll handle it soon, to my spouse means she has to do it herself to make sure it gets done. So if you happen to be talking to the judger, letter J in the Myers-Briggs personality world, it helps to say, yes, let's talk about this in about 2 hours. Because if you don't put a timeline on it, it doesn't exist in their world. It just doesn't exist unless they know some sense. I'll handle it and I'll be done by Friday. And I'll text you as soon as I'm done so you'll know. That's high level communication to the person who's probably running your business, by the way. People who are highly organized. A chief, the SEO would be a very organized person. Probably the chief operating officer would be a highly organized person. And the key is to put it in time. If your spouse is that personality, the more we don't get to say, I'll handle it soon, trust me, I'm good for it. It means nothing to them. I'll handle it by Friday. It'll be done by Wednesday morning. Then they can roll over and go to sleep because if there's a tab if they're a tab in their internal browser.
I see.
If you're not 100% here, you really not ought to discuss anything of note.
Okay. What would you say in your field makes you a little bit unique in your space, right? When people want help with a relationship, other than your experience, is there a particular approach that you think is particularly beneficial or special about what you provide?
One of the oftentimes people come with some degree of infidelity or suspicion of infidelity or inappropriate relationships. And we call it infidelity or cheating. And I take a chance to point out that those are symptoms. It's not the cause. And when you understand that it's a symptom and is not the cause, we can ask the right question, which is like a symptom of what?
Right.
And that where we begin, among other things, with the 5 love languages by Gary Chapman. I'll give them a copy every day. Every time they come in, their homework is to read the first 9 chapters aloud, taking turns, and then take the quiz online. And it often happens that you've been misloving your spouse.
Right.
They show love, receive love by acts of service, like my spouse. I like to be appreciated, words of affirmation. I also like quality time. So in the absence of that, people can get very frustrated. I get a call one day. He says, something's wrong with my wife. And I listened a bit further. It turns out that he's busy doing his business while she's waiting to have quality time. And after a while, she started finding quality time with somebody else because that's
Right.
how she feels loved. And then we go to work. So in this world of love languages, if you're not aware of your love languages and you're not aware of their love languages, you can believe that you're loving them, but they're not getting the message.
Right. Paul, for our listeners, can you tell them what I believe Gary breaks down into 5 love languages?
There's gifts, quality time, acts of service, words of affirmation, and physical touch.
Okay.
Words of affirmation. That's a hot topic because when I grew up, and probably when you grew up, Tim, we heard a lot of "you're welcome." In fact, we didn't say "you're welcome." Our parents mentioned it to us. And these days, it seems our social environment has begun to fray. And we hear, no prob, no big deal, nothing of it, no worries, or maybe a shrug. So one of the first things we'll do in that first session is we store thank you and you're welcome, words of appreciation. You want to ask your spouse, what do you thank you for cooking. Thank you for bringing home the dry cleaning. Thank you. When the moment of you're welcome, there's a connection that doesn't exist up until the moment of you're welcome. I see this over and over again. They say, thank you for the and it comes there. And when they say you're welcome, there's a connection. And people start to grin and laugh and giggle, sometimes even cry, because they've never been appreciated for much of anything. So we restore words of affirmation, all the words of acknowledgments, grateful to you for, admire you for, respect you for. And the other hot topic, so to speak, is physical touch. People confuse physical touch and sex. By all means, intimacy is one dialect of the language of physical touch. But hugs are far more important. Have them often and frequent. When you come home at the end of the day, spend 20 seconds or more arriving home physically with a hug.
Nice. I'm a hugger, so I like that one.
Right. So when people restore hugs and you're welcome to their lives, words of affirmation contribute to the marriage.
Okay. You mentioned an interesting point about generational differences with like words of affirmation. Do you see that it's still there, just in a different form?
Unless you say you're welcome, there's no connection. No prob is no life. Affirmations, appreciations, acknowledgments all help fill your love tank. That's what Gary Chapman says. The idea is to keep your love tank full. And the easiest way to do it is hugs, long hugs. There's more to that conversation. To your children, when you have a 5-year-old who's being unhappy, you say, come over here, sit in my lap. Tell me what's going on. Hugs. When you arrive home, more hugs. If you want to start a difficult conversation, start with a hug. Establish the connection, then talk about what you get to talk about. Hugs.
Right. Okay. So you were going to go on a little bit more about some of the other points, or?
Well, the other thing to be aware of is your personality type. I mentioned that earlier. You'll go to 16personalities.com, 16personalities.com. Take this simple quiz. Do not overthink the questions, and you'll get a report with 4 letters and 4 percentages. You may find out that one of you is an extrovert and one of you is an introvert. That's me. I tend to stay home. My spouse likes to get out and do stuff. And that comes with a percentage of strength. Some people are like 99% extroverts. They sing in a rock band. They have a lot of friends, a very vivid social life. But some person I came across was a 99% introvert. I'm not quite that far, but I'm close. And they have books, music, internet, cable, garden, pets, and they're completely satisfied living at home. And they often marry an extrovert, often. And there was one couple, they were 24 years old, and she wanted to show him off to all her friends. Come, let's go. You'll meet all my friends. He's going, well,
Sure.
now they have a solution. They have two cars. She goes, hangs out with her friends for an hour. He shows up for as long as he can deal with it, and then go home. Two cars. That's all that we needed to solve that. You can be in love with any personality. It's just you get to be responsible for what it is. Thinkers and feelers. And if you ever watch The Big Bang Theory on TV, there's one character named Sheldon who thinks his way through life, analytically, logically, intellectually. And his own feelings don't factor highly into how he lives his world. And a thinker sometimes are married to a feeler. In fact, it happens a lot. And if the thinker says, "Why are you so upset? It's no big deal, just a yes or no question." But the feeler spouse feels like you don't care about them or their feelings. And then your relationship starts to spring a leak, a serious leak. And I mentioned earlier judges and perceivers. If you don't put it's easy to love a judger. So I tell my clients, just put it in time. Let them know when they can expect and anticipate it to be complete. And then they're satisfied. Judges shop with a shopping list. They would not shop without a shopping list. Why go? But I go shopping for the fun of shopping, for the experience of shopping. And our adaptation, my spouse and I, we have two shopping carts when we go to Costco. She gets the list, the accomplishment of shopping, and I have the freedom to explore all the aisles and look at all the things that are on sale or look pretty good. So she'll call me. She'll call me from the other end of Costco. Hey, I'm ready to check out. I'll say yes, and I'll be there shortly. Done. You can be married to anybody as long as you know who they are and how you love them and their personality types.
Okay.
Yes.
On that note, you mentioned opposites attract often, but do they stay together? Is it harder for them?
Well, if you're a hardcore thinker, there's a percentage involved. You may be attracted to the feeler. They have something that you feel somehow that missing. And so they have a vitality, a vibrancy of their life because they experience life emotionally. And as a thinker, oh man, she got something. I want to be in love with her. However, then they get married and the thinker runs his thinker chops on a feeler and it gets lost. So the impulse is there. The fulfillment is a bit shaky.
So when you do have a relationship with an opposite, extrovert, introvert, for example, it's historically fine that complementation works out, or is it proved to be more often than not more challenging than finding a like personality?
Well, unless and until you have the kind of skills that I provide, you might actually wind up growing apart. You may have some children and you spend 20 years raising your children. Now you're empty nesters and you haven't been nourishing your marriage. Right. And you look at the person on the other side of the bed saying, who's that? I have a lot of couples, they make sacrifices for career and family and finances. And they kind of lost track with the person they fell in love with. Common is a couple, young couple, they have two children under the age of 5. Their quality time is limited. We need to focus on nourishing your marriage even as you're raising children, because if you don't, it's going to cost you.
So what's your advice in that situation? Is it forcing date nights or?
Well, there's couples in here in Tucson, they come from someplace else. They have no family to support them. They need to find someone to do childcare that they trust and can rely on. So they go out for a date. A date could be as easy as reading Harry Potter aloud to each other. It's not complicated. You don't have to go out and spend lots and lots of money. But if
Okay.
you have no support system locally in Phoenix or in Tucson, we get to prioritize some quality time for us. And it may
Okay.
take, there are companies that have RNs, retired nurses. You can find a reliable, bonded, certified childcare person to give you a couple hours to yourself. Um,
So uh, switching
mhm.
points here a little bit. Can you touch on what the most common factors, in your opinion, are that cause people to need to reach out to you? Is it financial?
Well,
Is it infidelity? Is it what?
infidelity gets them in the door pretty fast.
Okay.
However, so in the first session, which is was long, the first half hour devoted to yes, ands, and seems.
Okay.
Skills, a skill set, a tool, a beginning level toolkit for communication.
Right.
Two, second half an hour is like how to communicate and know yourself to be heard. Because we want 100% mutual awareness. Third is love languages and personality types, which I've mentioned. And the fourth distortion is we have things that we made up to be true when we were 5. I figured out when I'm 5 that no one cares what I want. So why ask? Why bother? And for much of the next 50 years, I lived that world. I didn't share myself because who's listening? Why would I write a book? No one cares. And and once you can distinguish that, at 5 years old, you had an interpretation that no one cares, or you had I'm not good enough, or I'm about to be abandoned, or people cheat. There's a very long list, but these are things that were set in to your life when you were very young and intellectually, emotionally immature. And it happens that when you get married, those things that you made up to be true are still there, running beneath
Right.
the surface of your marriage. And in a fourth session, typically we exhume that interpretation and replace it with one that gives you access to life.
Okay. So you reframe sort of the ideas that maybe happened during formative years into
Yes.
something that you can use moving forward.
You can't erase it, but you can override it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's very valuable, Paul. Thank you. I'm sure. I'm sure a lot of people have benefited from sessions with you. You said you've had 5,000 even. That's
Yes, somewhere in that order, maybe more. I just didn't really start counting till 2018.
yeah.
One point I'd like to add, if we have time,
Sure.
is that I encourage people to be aware that the world we live in has a lot of I have to, I ought to, I should, I must, and I need to. We live lives circumscribed by the things we have to, need to, should, ought to, and must do. And if we listen for a second, you'll hear an or else. I have to, or else. I need to, or else. I should, or else. And when you have an or else life, you are not in choice. You're living a life given by obligations and circumstances. You are not free. You're not. And I said, let's swap 2 vowels, an O for an E. So let's go from a got to life to a get to life. And all of a sudden, the world opens up. I
Right.
get to change my mind. I have opportunity. I can embrace possibility, none of which exist in a have to, need to, should, ought to life. And when couple get it, it's like a nanosecond of life. When your children says, "Do I have to?" No, you don't have to. You get to. I have to go shopping. Have to? I get to go shopping. Can you feel the difference?
Yep. Yep.
You get to go to work means you're all there. If you have to go to work, 10% of you is on a beach fishing somewhere. So switching from a have to life to a get to life is key.
For sure. Some more gold there. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. So, one question I like to ask, a reflection question to a lot of my guests. It was reflecting on your journey. What do you wish you knew about building wealth and success earlier in your career?
I would have liked to have that self-awareness available from the Myers-Briggs test. There are others just like it, the DISC, the others, but if I knew that, why do I stay by myself so often? Because I am an introvert. Why do I feel? I went to a Grateful Dead concert many years ago, and it was so loud, so bright, and so crowded that it was physically painful. I don't do that anymore. So the self-awareness available by the love languages and personality types and communication, basic communication skills, I bless that to my 20-year-old self.
Okay. Is that a good, those formative years, a teenage and 20 something is a good time to really, what is it? Nosta ipsum, right? Know thyself. Would you recommend at that time they take these sort of
Yes.
online tests?
Yes, yes, and yes, because
Okay.
if you're an introvert falling in love with an extrovert, it's nice to know. If they really want the details, then you learn to provide them, because if you don't speak into their listening, we get to be responsible for who's listening to what we say. And it would solve a lot of relationship issues when you're 18, 17, they're not getting along because you don't know how to love each other. Find out. Make it
You're
work.
speaking the wrong language.
Well, I mean, you're misloving each other, and and people tend to say, "My fault? Is something wrong with me?" No, when you decide about yourself and how you operate, you can have great relationships with anybody.
Excellent stuff, Paul. Thank you. As we wrap up the interview, I was wondering if you could share any plans or initiatives you have for the coming 12, 18 months.
Well, you're going to see me all over social media. I mean, my book is my focus. This book, I would like to get into the hands of everybody. It's an awesome wedding gift. It's a blueprint. It's literally a cookbook. You can have the book and go chapter, recipe by recipe, and review it for the rest of your life. It is uncomplicated. So my plan going forward is to have more opportunities like this, to become a speaker. I'd love to do a TEDx. I have an entrance into the military world because young couples are deployed from where the heck they are to here in Dennis Monthan or Luke Air Force, which is by Goodyear.
Mm-hmm.
And wouldn't it be nice if after a day as service people, they could come home? Every 2 years, they get to shift their home. And wouldn't it be extraordinary if they could take their home with them when they move to new deployment, for instance? It's not complicated. It's a lot of fun. Couples come to me because they have to, and they come back because they get to. And I look forward to work with any couple, 5 sessions, and you're good. Like I say, you have a 50-year promise. I would say guarantee, except I won't live that long. MarriageandCommunication.com. I answered the phone.
Okay, excellent. So I think that the military service as well as the TED Talk are both great ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you also said that you're entertaining trying to bring better communication skills into the corporate world.
Absolutely. I mean, when you bring your troubled marriage into your workplace, then performance and productivity diminish. If your managers are unable to communicate with each other with mutual honor and respect, they spend more time in disputation than collaboration. When the powers that be are unable to convey their vision for the enterprise to everybody who works for them, it's a train wreck. Right. I promise to train every level of your organization in things as uncomplicated as yes, ands, and seems, and learning how to listen and be heard. That's the next evolution of marriage and communication. Will probably become business and communication online. Invite me. I promise you. I guarantee that the performance of your organization will begin to grow, because when you take care of your employees, the bottom line takes care of itself.
Right, right. And anyone who's been in an environment like that knows how disruptive it can be and toxic. So,
You don't need expensive, detailed strategies to deal with difficult employees. You don't. Teach them how to communicate, and then do it. Cheap
excellent.
and tax deductible.
Excellent stuff. Thank you, Paul. So, if people, you mentioned the website before, but if people would like to connect with you and learn more, could you share what they should do?
You can contact me at marriageandcommunication.com. You can find the book at Amazon, Marriage and Communication Recipes for Life. I wake up every day to make a difference in my life, the life of my spouse, the life of anyone who comes close to me. And I just enjoy, it's life. I don't have a marriage and communication business. I have a life business. People come to me and we all get more life. Yes,
That's
Sam.
beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching and listening. Thank you very much, Paul Zohav, for joining me today. Appreciate you sharing your story and insights into success and impact in life.
Thank you for inviting me. I enjoyed meeting you and meeting your people who pay attention to your services, Tim.
Thank you.
Inspired by our guests? Visit phoenixprosperitypodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.